إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور من أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتون إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار اللهم إني أسألك عفو وعافية من ثم آمين اللهم آمين. Indeed, all appreciation belongs to Allah. We cannot overemphasize and we cannot say it enough. We have to become a people who are appreciative of Allah. I want to start a discussion, of course, around the Qur'an and our involvement with it. Time does not permit me to mention all of the ayat and ahadith of this important topic. My hope, my desire, for today is to at least hopefully we can spark some interest in improving our relationship with the Book of Allah, enhancing our lives as Muslims, centered around our constitution, which is the Qur'an. I mentioned a few ayats and some hadith with Allah's permission. Allah Ta'ala, He tells us, after we seek refuge in Allah from our enemy, the shaitan, Allah Ta'ala, He says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Ayat taken from Surah Yusuf. Ayats like this are many in the Qur'an. Allah Ta'ala says, verily we have revealed it, meaning the Qur'an, or the book, right? How? In what fashion? As an Arabic Qur'an. Something that is to be read in Arabic. Allah says, Qur'an and Arabian, He says. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Perhaps. Why in Arabic? Because perhaps, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, perhaps you're able to do some reasoning. You're able to apply reasoning skills to determine what's going on. Very important. The Qur'an, and we've mentioned this in the past, and we will continue to mention it by Allah's permission. In order to become engaged with the Book of Allah, 5 things must be done. 5 things. We should increase our listening to the Qur'an. Increase listening to the Book of Allah, to the words of Allah. Irrespective if you understand it or not, listen to the words of Allah. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it. What reaches the heart. What reaches the heart is what's important. So increase your listening to the Qur'an. That's going to now spark, it should motivate one. If I'm listening to this, I want to know what are these feelings that I'm feeling when I hear the words of Allah. So increase your listening to the Book of Allah. The second thing, at-tilawa, recite it. recite the book of Allah, recite the words of Allah. If you just spend just Qul huwallahu ahad, that's enough. But recite it. I'm not a betting Muslim. We're not betting people. But I would gamble that many of us, me included, don't even really appreciate and know the full meaning of Surah Al-Fatiha, despite the fact that we say it so many times a day. Despite the fact. We don't even understand the value of Surah Al-Fatiha. The Basmalah, that is it. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. So increase our recitation, meaning the tilawah, the reading of it. Reading from a mushaf reading in all Arabic script. We're too worried about what it means. Allah has that for us. Two things. Listening to that we're reading, and this type of reading is following also. Tilawah has also this kind of meaning. And then the third thing is start trying to put some of these ayats, these words, these signs from Allah, try to commit them to memory. When you think of situations, right? When you think of something, try to relate to what ayat in the Qur'an tells you such and such. This is also a way of remembering the Qur'an. Yeah, we want to memorize surah so and so, Jews, Amma, Jews, Tabarak, Jews, Qad Sami Allah. This we of course, but in reality, how can the Quran be applicable in real time? Situations happen. You should know an ayat from the Quran to help you. We should know an ayat from the Quran, a surah. Where can we go to find an answer for whatever we're dealing with? Whatever we're dealing with is in the Quran. But if we're not listening to it, we're not able to hear it. If we're not reading, if the only time we're reading the Quran is only in the month of Ramadan. That's the only time people really get this. We should develop a schedule of reading, listening, memorizing. Not one thing, not just 2, 3, right? But 5 things. We're number 4 now. Right? That listening, reading, memorizing, it should now push us over the threshold into what they call, the ulama call a tadabbur or tafakkur, causing us to think about why is Allah saying what He is saying? Why is He selecting certain words in some surah and doesn't select them in other surah? There's a reason for that. There's a reason. Not one letter, not one word is out of place. We can't even begin to defend our Constitution because we don't know it. We don't know it. That's just a sad reality. We don't know it. And we have to do something to change that narrative. We don't know the book of Allah. We don't know it. And we have to stop pretending that we know it. So, listening, reading, memorizing pushes us to what's called tadabbur. Contemplating. Why is Allah saying what He is saying? What is the intent of Allah? It's not just stories. But guess what? If you don't read the Quran for this thing we call tadabbur, that's all it becomes. It just becomes some stories. That's all. The Qur'an is much, much more than that. Much, much more than that. Much, much more. 4 things, right? 5th thing, al-amal bi, is now, once you, again, I keep repeating because this is important. You cannot do one without the other. You can't, if we want to become engaged with the Book of Allah, our scholars have listed 5 things that we need to do in order to become engaged with the Book of Allah. Listening. I mean, Allah has made it easy. We got the phones and these things now. You just go and pull it up, and so many ways to listen to the Qur'an. So many ways. No excuses. Was a little lad, had them with them big old things on, I was walking down the street like a fool, blowing out our eardrums. This is what we had to walk around with. Then they make the little small ones or something, SubhanAllah, Reading. This should be halaqah, circles of learning and reading in the masjid. Circles of reading at the Fajr. This should be dedicated time to read portions of the Quran in jama'ah and individually. Make that part of our schedule, daily schedule to read. Even if it's just one ayah. Just one ayah. A page, but even if it's just one ayah. Try to commit that ayah to memory. And what I mean by memory here, other than the traditional memorizing, because we ask Allah to give us that ability, but meaning make it practical. Let me learn ayat, surahs that reflect the real world outside. How do I navigate through this madness out there? Allah tells us in the Quran so many ayats. We'll mention a few of them to give you an idea. Contemplate on the meanings. Why Allah say this now, but then he said, why so many different, why we have different, and when I say different, meaning we have multiple accounts of the story of Adam, the creation of Adam. Why? Was not one enough in Baqarah? وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When the Rabb of the world said to the Malaika, I'm about to place on the earth a human being. What kind of human being? A Khalifa. What's a Khalifa? Someone that dies. Never happened before. This is someone that dies and someone takes over. That's why the Malaika said, are you placing somebody that's going to cause mischief and harm in the land? Because they had this concept of body was not in the Malaika's vocabulary. And someone taking over. It wasn't in their vocabulary. They were not programmed to understand a Khalifa. They were not programmed. AI already existed years ago when Allah created everything. There's nothing new. AI is nothing new. But why? Why we hear so many different accounts of that story? It forces it forces you to, why? Was it once enough? Okay, twice. Multiple times this story, this event is being told to us. Multiple times. But why? That's for you and I to find out. That's for you and I to find out. That's where this tadabbur comes in, this contemplating comes in at. Why? And then we have an obligation to put these ayahs into practice. Allah Ta'ala, He says elsewhere, وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ حُكْمًا عربية. Listen to what Allah says. وَلَئِنِ اتَّبَعْتَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ بَعْدَ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَا لَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَلِيٌّ وَلَا وَاقٍ. SubhanAllah. And thus we have revealed it, this book, how? حُكْمًا عَرَبِيًّا, as an authority, a judgment in Arabic. حُكْمًا عَرَبِيًّا, Allah calls it now. This Qur'an, giving judgment, rulings, legislation. That's why I said it's our dastur, it's our constitution. And then Allah says to his prophet, and now we, because we are the prophet's representatives, and if you were to follow their desires, people who don't follow the Qur'an, follow their whims, their desires, their wishes that have no substance, after ilm has come to you, listen to what, after knowledge has come to you, what one of you is to follow their desires. Allah says, مَا لَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ. Allah says, مَا لَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ وَالٍ. You will have no help from Allah. None. None, no protection from Allah if you was to follow the whims of the non-Muslims. People who don't use the Qur'an as their dastur, as their constitution. This is what Allah told his prophet, and Allah is telling us. If we choose to follow non-Muslims and rulings and judgments, we don't get no help from Allah, no protection from Allah. This is the value of the Qur'an. After knowledge has come to us, we have an obligation to do the right thing. It's not, okay, well, maybe. We have to do the right thing. And if we're struggling, ask Allah. Get up in the middle of the night and ask Allah for help. Partner with somebody. Let someone be your mentor. This is what we learned from the prophets and his Sahaba, the Ashab. This mentoring thing is real. We need people that help us along this journey. Some people, Allah bless it, they just, mashallah, but some people need that extra help. Partner with somebody. Have someone call it, man, give me a call so I can get up for Fajr. Let me know when you go out to the masjid. Let me come pick me up. Partner with somebody. We ain't got to do this thing alone. It wasn't designed like that. The prophet had companions. We have to have companions. Allah Ta'ala, we have a hadith of Allah's Prophet Sallallahu narrated by the companion Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhumah. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن لله أهلي من الناس, the Prophet said. قالوا يا رسول الله من هم؟ قال هم أهل القرآن أهل الله وخاصته. The Prophet ﷺ said that verily, indeed, Allah has people, right? People that are like not family, because the word that means, but it means people that belong to Allah. People that Allah gives special favors to, that Allah grants things to. There are people like that, they raise their hand and dua, and Allah answers their dua before their hands come down to their side. They in sajda before they can come up out of sajda. Allah has answered their dua. The companion said, man, who are these people, O Messenger of Allah? And Allah's Messenger, listen, he responded, God saying, they are people of the Qur'an, people who are engaged in the Qur'an, and they are the closest to Allah. Become engaged with the book of Allah. We have an ayah from the Qur'an. Allah Ta'ala, he says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون. Kitab. we normally try a book. A book. Interesting. Kitab. Right? You know, it says a book, but if you know your history, you know the Qur'an didn't come out as a book. What does kitab mean now? A book is, the end covers, and then you have pages in it. That's typically a kitab. The Quran wasn't revealed like that, but Allah calls it a kitab. Why? But he says, fussilat ayatu. Its ayat, its signs are expanded. Expanded, fussilat. Meaning made wide open so you can see exactly what it means. But you can't see what it means if you don't learn Arabic. Fusilat ayatuhu. Right? And this, and how? Because how? Allah says again, Qur'an and Arabiya. It's an Arabic Qur'an. It's Arabic. An Arabic Qur'an. For who? For a people يعلمون, who know better. We have to become people who know better. That's something we grew up with. When we know better, we do better. And we should know better by now. It's not working. Another ayat, Allah Ta'ala, he says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولو جعلناه قرآنا أعجميا لقالوا لولا فصلت آياته سبحان الله أعجمي وعربي قل هو للذين آمنوا هدى وشفاء والذين لا يؤمنون في آذانهم وقر وهو عليهم عمى أولئك ينادون من مكان بعيد. Allah says, and had we revealed this Quran in a language other than the Arabic language, his prophet Muhammad and ours. And Allah says, had we revealed this Quran in another language, because he could have programmed Muhammad to speak any language he wanted him to speak, because he put the Quran into the heart of Muhammad. Look what Allah says. Had we revealed this Quran, meaning in a non-Arabic language, they would have said, why wasn't his verses expanded upon? Why wasn't the ayat exposed so that we can understand it? This is one of the many things that Arabic has over many languages in the world. That Arabic has this ability for concepts to exist even if the situation isn't there yet. Remarkable. Concepts may exist, but the situation isn't there. But Arabic has a way for these things to merge together so it just seems like a seamless thing. Now I'm blown away reading it, seeing how, I can't but help get excited when I read the Quran, when I read and Allah has blessed me to understand. I can't but help get excited. They would have said, why wasn't these ayahs expounded upon, explained so that we can understand what's going on? What? Farm in an Arab? And then Allah Ta'ala says, say to them, to those who believe, this is guidance. The Quran is huda wa shifa. It's guidance. It's guidance in shifa. It's guidance in shifa. It's healing. Healing. The Quran is this. And for those who do not believe, And for those who do not believe, who do not have iman, Allah says, in their ears, waqrun, lead, that they can't even hear. They can't hear. They can't hear the simplicity of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. They can't hear that. They can't comprehend that simplicity. They have to make something complicated. It got to be more than one God. This idea of one God can't be real. It can't be that we're going to die and come back. That's too simple for them. That's too hard. They got to make it complicated. Oh, you can do what you want in this world. There's no repercussions. There's no consequences. This is how they think. Allah says, so thus, that's why they're called. So it seems like when they're hearing the call, when you're inviting to Islam, it seems like you far away, and they so that's why, that's the parallel. They seem like they miles apart. That's why they can't hear. They can't embrace the message of La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. But look how Allah has blessed us. He has blessed you and I to understand and accept that message. The best dhikr is to say La ilaha illallah, and the best dua is to say Alhamdulillah. Aqulu qawli astaghfiru wa atubu ilaykum. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم. Hadith narrated by Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in which he said, the Messenger of Allah said, "Man qara harfan min kitabillah falahu bihi hasana." Right? والحسنة بعشر أمثالها. لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف ولا لكن ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف. Whoever reads a letter from the book of Allah, right? That letter is equivalent to 10 hasanah, to a reward. And each reward is the example, is the likeness of 10 rewards. One letter is equivalent to 10 rewards, the Prophet said in this hadith. And so the Prophet then went on to explain. He said, I'm not saying Alif Lam Mim is a harf, meaning combined, meaning one harf. No, Alif by itself, the Lam by itself, the Mim by itself. And our Basmala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. How many letters are in this word? 19 letters. If my math is correct, 19 times 10, you get the point. You get the point. 19 times 10, Hasanah, by Allah's permission. Important, another hadith narrated by the companion Abu Musa Ash'ari. He says, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the example of a believer who reads the Qur'an. The example of who reads the Qur'an is equivalent to what? What is that like? That's like the citrus fruits. Citrus fruits. If we have to think of the quality of a citrus fruit, our oranges, grapefruits, the clementines, those, the mandarin, those, they smell good and they taste sweet. That's the example of a person, of a believer who reads the Qur'an. The Prophet said, right? Rihuha tayyib wa tam'uha tayyib. Right? And the example of a believer who does not read the Qur'an. Right? And the example of one, the likeness of one who does not read the Qur'an. May Allah not make us like these people. Right? Even though they're believers. They're Muslims, but they don't read the Qur'an. They're not engaged in the Qur'an. What did the Prophet say there? They're like a tamar. Tamar is like a date. What's the character of a date? It has no smell. We understand why the Prophet why he's using these words, why he's saying what he's saying in a moment. It has no smell, but what? It tastes good. It's sweet. No smell coming out of it. sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then the Prophet, he said, the example of munafiq. Some narrations have fasiq or non-Muslim, but here munafiq, right? Those who pretend. Now you can see the connection. Who pretend. So the munafiq who does not read the Qur'an, or the munafiq is like who doesn't read the Qur'an, it's like, in Arabic it's called handala. Handala is these bitter, like bitter melons, these bitter gourds that you find on in some like Asian countries and whatnot. You know, real bitter. You know, real bitter to taste, right? Real bitter to taste. Okay, it has no smell. Right? It doesn't. You can't. It doesn't have a smell, and the taste is bitter. And the example of munafiq who does read the Qur'an is like basil. You know, basil, the plant, the flower, basil. Basil, it has a nice smell. You can, man, it smells good, but the taste of it is bitter also. It's a real strong. People can't do that. Those kind of greens like that. So it's just strong, but it's good for you. But at the same time, it's good for you, but because it has a nice smell, it seems like it's good, but the taste is bitter. And then, interestingly, there's another hadith similar to this one, which added the following: the believer who reads the Qur'an and puts it into practice. Those don't just get stuff out of thin air. Who puts it into practice, then that person is equivalent to, like we mentioned about that citrus fruit, right? It tastes sweet and it has a nice smell. This is what we want. We want to have substance in us. We want whatever come out of us to smell good. Right? When we speak, we want our words to be nice. And that's by learning the Qur'an. And then for who doesn't read the Qur'an, he doesn't read the Qur'an, he doesn't read the Qur'an, but what does he do? He put it into practice. That's like the date. That's like the date. Many like that. We like the dates. We don't read the Qur'an, but we read because our imam, our teachers said this is how you act and behave. That's how we act and behave because that's how we know the Qur'an, and that to that extent, and that's not good. But that example is like the person, like the date. No smell, but it is good. We don't want to stay there. We don't want to stay at that level. We don't stay. And then finally, remind us, as Allah Ta'ala reminds us in this ayat, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ وَيُبَشِّرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا كَبِيرًا. Allah Ta'ala says, really this Qur'an, that Qur'an that we're talking about, that was revealed upon the heart of Muhammad, that we hold dear to us. Allah says, it guides to that which is most proper. Guides to that which is most, it gives us our moral compass, our etiquette, our values. The Qur'an gives us that. To that which is most proper, and it warns, it gives glad tidings to those men and women who believe. Or Allah make us believing men and women. It gives, and what do you have to do? You have to do righteous deeds. You can't just believe. You have to do something with that belief. Perform righteous deeds. Sadaqah. Helping people. Helping people. Become a benefit for mankind. Become a benefit for mankind. Find out what the masjid needs. And if Allah has blessed you with some talents, render your talents, render your services for the benefit of Allah, for Islam, and for the betterment of our souls in the hereafter. Brothers and sisters, it is Fridays. Increase your salawats on Allah's Prophet. Allah Ta'ala reminds us when He says, Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Brothers and sisters, again, for anybody that's ill or sick, try to make some point to visit them and let them know that you're thinking about them, because again, one day we'll find ourselves in that same predicament by Allah's permission. And then finally, again, we have to always mention, because we are maintainers by Allah's permission, do not leave out of the masjid, the center here, without no sadaqah. We have to take care of ourselves. We have no one else taking care of us other than us by Allah's permission. Iqam as-salah.